and welcome back to the Planning Pulse podcast. With you, as always, Matt Harvison, the principal practice lead for all things Workday Adaptive Planning at Ikorio. Joining me today, a very special guest. We've got Ariane to talk about some of our users' favorite topic that is going to be diving a little bit deeper inside of Office Connect. But before we begin, Ariane, I know this is your first time joining the podcast, so maybe just give us a little bit of an introduction.
Right. So I'm Aaron. I've been working at Ikorio for nearly 3 years now. Prior to that, I've worked at Workday. So I've been involved using Adaptive for the last 10 years now. In that time, my favorite tool overall in Adaptive is Office Connect. I love the reaction that we get from customers when we show them the capabilities in Office Connect and how it makes all their reporting much easier. And it's very familiar to them just because of the amount of time that they spend in Excel on their everyday tasks.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Office Connect is always sort of the crowd favorite whenever we go through product demonstrations because it allows users to stay inside of the familiar confines of Microsoft Excel, but it does have that direct connection back from Workday Adaptive Planning. So you're not actually interacting with the data, you're just pulling and refreshing and then building those familiar formatted reports for board reporting packages, year to date, things like that. But, when I think about finance users, right, they all get excited when they see the product demonstration because building reports generally speaking, building reports, building out inside of Excel is really what folks in finance and accounting like to do for fun. So, Aaron, what do you like to do for fun outside of building things inside of Microsoft Excel?
Apart from building things in Excel, I really like playing football and football, America, like UK version of football, not the American football,
I gotcha.
and things like reading as well. So I really enjoy reading. Been doing a lot of that since, especially in the last few years.
Gotcha. Now, when you say football, I immediately went to thinking, Dallas Cowboys and NFL season about to start. So you're not talking American football.
No, no, the European or the rest of the world version.
The rest of the world version. Awesome. Well, maybe we're going to dive into the product here in just a moment, but I want to ask, how do you see your customers utilizing Office Connect or maybe some tips and tricks as we're going into budget season for maybe some of the features inside of Office Connect that your customers are using more and more frequently?
So the main thing is to try and make the reports as dynamic as possible. And what that will mean is that they can move from, the current forecast to the next forecast to the budgeting cycle with that same report by just adjusting a few filters. And then they can use a base report to create any report that they need for the different processes or for the different requirements that they get from their leadership teams and other requirements that they have.
Yeah, 100%. When we think of the power that is Office Connect, it's the ability to refresh as you're creating versions, as you're moving throughout the year, as you're doing reforecasts. You're not having to rebuild the structure, the framework. You're just refreshing with the latest data. So, Aaron, maybe if we could pull open Office Connect and just walk through maybe one of your favorite features that you've got that you see a lot of your customers using, and maybe some of those who are listening today would start to use as they go into budget season.
Perfect. So one of the main features that I absolutely love in Office Connect, and I think a lot of customers see benefit, is the ability to use repeating reports. So we're going to show the repeating reports, and then I'm just going to highlight how the repeating reports works with the filters and the relative date as well to kind of make the report easier to use. So once you've built a template of the report, in this case, we have a sales report. We've got all the sales data at like the top company for total product sales. So we can see here, these are the total units that we're selling across all of our product ranges. Now, what I want to do is I want to see the revenue, but broken out for the different products on different tabs. And the best way to achieve that is repeating reports here in the top right. So I click on here, and then it will ask me what I want to replicate my account, the element type that I want to replicate the worksheet on. And in this case, I'm going to scroll down to my products dimension. Now, this is a test instance, so there's a lot of dimensions in here. So you'll see here, once I click product, it's going to give me all the products list that I have. and I can select either. So quick tip, when you have to select many options, you can right click on here and do a select all and clear all so that you don't have to go in and select each one individually. Now, in this case, I'm going to select a few of the sheets, a few of the options individually, just so that we can create 6 sheets and we don't do one for each of the products that we have. We then select the delimiter. So here we can select hyphen, comma, in terms of how we want the wording. So here you're going to see that the new worksheets are going to be revenue, which is what our current worksheet, and then it's going to be hyphen, and then whichever product that we have. I can change the format to reverse that so that it's the product and then says revenue as well. And by clicking on the create, you're going to see it's going to create a copy of the worksheet, but with a filter applied for each one of the products. Now, in this case, I can go to each worksheet and see what the sales are for product A1, A2, A3. In the same way that we've done it for the product, we can do it for the levels, any of the other dimensions, anything else that we want to use to kind of create the worksheet. And what it's doing is, you'll notice when I go to my main revenue tab, the original, and I click on filters, you'll see that there's only the working budget filter. So I've used, in this case, a filter to select the working budget because that's where the data is. But if I go to my product A1, you'll see what the repeating report has done is created a copy of the sheet, but then it's automatically applied a filter for product A1 without me having to create a copy of the sheet and then go in and select in the product. And the same for A2, etc. going forward. The way to do this manually would be the following. So I could achieve this also in a manual process instead of using repeating reports by coming to the revenue worksheet, doing a move or copy report. It's important to do the Office Connect move or copy, which is this top one, and not the standard Excel. Otherwise, it's not going to work in the right way. It's not going to copy the elements that we want. Once I click on here, I can select what sheet I want to copy. And I've copied sheet 1, which is our revenue sheet. Now, you'll see in the revenue sheet, there's no product dimension in here currently as a filter. So what I need to do is I need to add that to my filter list. So I need to go down to, let me just search for, kind of search for product A1 just to get that enabled. And then I'm going to apply that filter. And you can see that in a manual way, I've achieved the same thing that I did with the repeating reports. You can see that the two numbers kind of align on the product revenue sheet here and on the manual report. The main benefit of the repeating reports is we could do all of those sheets instantly from that template once we've created it. So if we think of doing like an income statement by level, it allows us to very quickly kind of run it for all the different like divisions or entities that we may have in the adaptive level structure or any other dimension.
Yeah, and Aaron, one of the things that you had mentioned that I thought was really important is not to utilize your standard move or copy function inside of Office Connect because you lose the connection for a lot of elements. I think it's really well highlighted if you select linked cells, and we can talk through that really quickly as well. So when you select the linked cells, you can see we got the blue and the green highlight. That lets us know that we have the direct feed from Adaptive directly into Office Connect. If you were to use that native move or copy, what you're saying is we remove all of that connection that exists with Adaptive on that sheet. So you must use that move or copy report as selected on the right click. Is that right?
Exactly. So if I use this one, and we're going to copy the revenue, let's copy revenue 2. What we're going to see, if I go to the revenue 2, the original, you'll see that if I click on cell B7 and go to the review tab, I can see all of the elements being applied to generate that number. Now, if I go to that same cell here, you'll see I've got the value because it copied that value over. But if I refresh this, you'll see I can't refresh that number because when I click on cell B7 and I'm in the review tab, there's no Office Connect element anymore there. It's lost the connection, and that's just what we had originally in adaptive. Whereas if I go back to my original sheet, if I try and clear that number, I can click refresh and that number is going to come back.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Aaron, really appreciate you walking us through some of your favorite features that exist inside of Office Connect and tips and tricks as folks are heading into budget season. I know it's your first time on the podcast. Hopefully, it's not your last. Any thoughts or any final statements that you'd like to make before we wrap this week's episode of the Planning Pulse podcast?
I think that's it. Yeah, utilize Office Connect. There's a lot of great features. And if you make the reports dynamic, it's just kind of very easily for you to kind of shift the report over into a new version. So in this case, you'll see it's kind of your working forecast. If you've created a new version, we can just add that to that filter list and kind of very quickly create a new version going forward of the report. So now if I just refresh that to look at the 26 forecast, it'll refresh the numbers. So by building the reports using the filters, the relative date, we can make these reports very dynamic so that we don't have to do too many adjustments going from version to version or time period to time period.
Absolutely. That's the strength of utilizing Office Connect and Workday Adaptive Planning is we set up the report once, then we refresh as business changes, as time changes. We don't have to continue rebuilding reports. I was talking with a customer just this morning. They mentioned that they go through the close process. It takes, 4 or 5 days to close, and then they're spending almost 20 days building the board reporting packages when it's all the same format. Something like this inside of Office Connect and Workday Adaptive Planning will just allow you to refresh, and then you're on your way to getting back into the reforecast process. So, Aaron, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. Really appreciate your time and insight into Office Connect and repeating reports. For those of you who are paying attention to the podcast and have tuned into the last few episodes, we are going through how-to tips and tricks as we head into budget season. You can catch us with another episode next week. You can plan on it.